paper wasn't in vogue, cutting down trees was.
What attracted you to the idea of recycling then?
The first thing that attracted me was a company offered me a job when I got out of college, and they happened to be a recycling company. And then I managed to stay in it. But I went to a forestry school. I could have ended up in the virgin fiber end of the business as well. But then I stayed on in it. And like a lot of things, you know, you get committed to it, so there you are.
There was nothing specifically, no moral or ethical reasons why you got into recycling versus the other end of the industry where you would have been cutting down the timber. That's hard for me to believe.
Well, I didn't steer myself deliberately. I was active in scouting, and that's what steered me into a forestry college. Mm-hmm. So I was going to be a forester. I did a lot of camping. I wanted to live out I wanted to live away from women and everything. And then I decided that was a bad idea. So I got out of the forestry.
He got into the paper business. His first job, working in a mill at Continental Can. When Nork went on the market, Ed went out on a limb, moving from one of the biggest paper companies to owning one of the smallest. The fact that you wanted to be your own boss.
That's right.
Drove you as well.
I think so. I tend to be out on my own, and I've been analyzed recently in one of our exercises that we go through trying to help people understand themselves. I'm doing what I should do, and I've done what I should do, apparently.
Oh, that's good to know at this
You know, it's a little late to find out if I'm on the wrong path.
The road to Mullen's fortune has been paved in paperboard, a type of cardboard, and the Nork Group makes nearly 1 million tons of it a year. By inventing new uses for the product, Ed created demand, and one by one turned 11 neglected mills into profit centers. Cereal and pizza boxes, book covers, even lottery tickets are made from Ed Mullen's mills. Today, the Nork Group is the nation's largest maker of game boards.
How does waste paper, how does it make you a rich man?
How does it make you a rich man? Well, if you're pretty clever about what you do with it, how you sell it, the business is full of good people. Every person that runs a sizable enterprise speaks about the necessity for key people. In our business, it is literally the case. I mean, you cannot run a business of this kind without top-drawer people.
But I'm talking about your strictly business plan, too. Did you foresee yourself doing this? I'll take all my money out of one little mill and put all my money in another little mill?
As they say in the vernacular, we bet the family jewels a couple of times. But I didn't intend when I came to Newark that we were just going to keep running that relatively small mill there in this particular market.
You had plans.
I was looking for opportunities, and we found them.
The consolidation of the 70s gave Mullen all the opportunities he was looking for. The first came when his former employer, Continental Can, put 3 mills up for sale. It was the first time a small paper company gobbled up a part of a larger one. The deal was gutsy, immediately making the Nork Group a major player. But for Mullen, it meant taking on a lot of debt.
Was this one of those times when you sold the family jewels? You put everything on the line?
Oh, yeah. I almost got shot out of the water, Beverly. One of the lowest, most disconcerting things that ever happened. I got a call from the bank, and very casually, the vice president informed me, well, the loan committee had met, and they didn't want to go ahead with it and so forth, some zib-zab about it. And it just knocked me right over.
But soon Mullen was up and running, straight towards another bank, which closed the deal.
What was the lesson from that?
Well, the lesson was to make darn sure your banking relationship is pretty critical. And I would say the bank made the mistake, though. The bank thought they knew me and the business, and they didn't.
When you incurred that debt, though, did that scare you?
I can't say that it did, no.
Why?
Well, I was pretty confident, and I did have some good people. When we hit the ground running, we turned those mills right around. They were a hair shirt for Continental Can to operate, but they were a piece of cake for us.
For the first time in history, more paper is being recycled than sent to landfills. And more than 10% of all the waste paper collected is recycled by the Nork Group.
What is the profitability of the business been for you over the past 20 years?
Well, it's been not as profitable as it should be, but mainly it's because we we spend a lot of money. We spend just about every dollar we can get our hands on. We're in much more conservative and better shape right now, and we're prepared to do something more significant if the opportunity arises.
How has the profits, what's the scale look like on the...
They're not up every year uniformly. We have had our ups and downs.
What was the worst year?
I probably have blanked it out of my mind. I can't say. We've had a bad year as recently as a few years ago. Waste paper prices can be very volatile, incidentally. They can go right up through the roof. There happen to be low waste paper prices right now, but we fully expect that waste paper within a year or two is going to go back up, and we're going to have to pay through the nose for our raw material.
The company gets its raw material from the 200 million tons of solid waste thrown out each year.
Has there been interest from those large paper companies now to take you over as a successful recycling company?
We have been approached.
And were you being persuaded to possibly go public at that time?
Well, we've been, people suggest that and want us to think about it. I put it this way, not to be, if I opened the door and said, yes, I want to talk about going public, I'd have all kinds of people telling me that. And if I said, yes, we'll talk to people about being merged or bought out or something, I don't repel people. If somebody says they'd like to talk to me about it, I try to be reasonably sensible and gracious about it.
But what stops you from going public, losing being your boss?
Well, it's a different world than the world we're in right now. It puts different imperatives on you, and you have to handle yourselves differently. I don't know. I know what we're doing is we do with a lot of freedom, and we can move. Public, if we were public, I am afraid that we would be inhibited to a certain extent.
What was the biggest risk you ever took?
I guess somebody would look at these things that we did as being risks, but I looked at them more as opportunities. But we took chances on things, but on the other hand, I felt I knew what we were doing, and I knew I had the people to do it.
Are you a gambler?
Yeah, I'm not what you would call conservative. Yeah, I take chances. But then again, I'm taking a chance, but I think I know what's going to happen. I'm not out there hanging out on the end of the limb.
Calculated.
Yeah, if you know what you're doing and you have the people to do it, you know your business, you can manage.
We both.
One of the people Mullen counts on is his son Robert, who is moving up through the ranks.
Yeah. What's the latest word from Chicago?
We've settled with the union committee. They are prepared to recommend our offer to...
Would you like your sons to take over the business one day?
Well, this one that's in the business, I hope he can, at some point, maybe assume more responsibility.
How important is it that it carry on the Mullen name? And
I wouldn't say I would make a federal case out of it.
do you think about retiring, or is that not an option?
I'm not thinking about it now. It's inappropriate for me to retire right now. I am trying to stay out of the way of the people that are running the operations.
But Mullen has no plans to give up his routine, and his business isn't the only thing the 70-plus senior works hard at. He keeps in stride by running his other business, harness racing and horse breeding. This responsibility he shares with another son, Mark.
Is there something that you've learned about running this business that you've taken to your horse breeding business?
Well, I'll put it this way. The horses are fortunate that I'm in the paper business.
When you look at these beautiful creatures, waste paper is the furthest thing from your mind. Yet it's the profits from recycling that help pay for this passion. But as Ed Mullen says, whether they win or lose, he's enjoying the game. This is Fairwinds Farm, one of 6 spreads Ed Mullen owns in Cream Ridge, New Jersey. All 300 acres are devoted to raising standardbreds or harness racers. It's here that Mullen indulges his love for the great outdoors. Ed Mullen says he approaches this most volatile of businesses conservatively, focusing on solid horsemanship. He breeds multi-million-dollar stallions like Die Laughing to a harem of mares. Newborn foals dot the fields, each newborn already worth hundreds of thousands of dollars in horse flesh.
Was the horse business, though, something you got involved with for pleasure or for the business of it?
Basically for pleasure. It's a business it's supposed to be a pleasurable business, and it is. I do enjoy it. It's a challenge, a little bit of a struggle, a learning thing, and it's so different than being in the recycling business itself and running the mills. It's just a whole different world down here.
But the fact is that it's a high-risk business. There's a big overhead. There's all sorts of diseases and natural occurrences that can knock a horse out of business.
Bev, that's exactly the case. If anything can go wrong with horses, it does. You've got to be like a rubber ball, keep bouncing, because more often than not, something does go wrong. To get a foal get a mare in foal, to get the foal on the ground healthy, grow that foal, get that foal to the races and have her win some money, that's like being hit by lightning.
Is this a profitable farm?
Yes.
Would you say that tentatively?
Well, I'm saying it tentatively because it comes and goes a little bit. It's and there's different ways of measuring it. It's like any business, you know. There's different ways of looking at it. I would say it's holding its own. Let me put it that way.
Breaking even?
Yeah.
Is that the best you can hope for? Do you think?
No. I have hopes for better than that. We have a big investment here, which you know, if you got very literal about it, you would say you had a lot of money tied up in the land and the buildings and the animals. I mean, there's big money tied up in the horses themselves.
What has been your biggest personal satisfaction from this?
It's over a period of time, and I would say I get a satisfaction out of just being around on this place and seeing the animals. And some of them I've raced, and I remember buying them. And I remember deciding who they'd be bred to. And now that my son's playing a part in it, it adds something more to it.
Talk about all the great races we're going to put on.
All right.
What kind of a manager are you?
Just an easygoing guy with everybody to take advantage of.
What has been the philosophy, though, behind your management?
I think I'm very tuned in on people. From my standpoint, I do not try to lead this company or push it along oblivious to anybody else. I look for other people's thinking and understanding and their thoughts. Not that I'm just trying to create a consensus, but by and large, I've had good people with me, and I depended upon them, and what I didn't think of, they would think of, and we would act together. And if I could characterize anything, that would be it.
You don't pick easy businesses, do you?
No, I don't know why I do that. That's a good question. Why do I pick such hard businesses?
Why?
Because the harness horse business, the standardbred, the breeding racing of standardbreds has not been a growing business. That is something to wonder about. Why do I head into these kind of things? But the attendance of tracks is off. The handle is down. There's so many different ways that people can bet and entertain themselves that it's a difficult thing.
What do you see as your biggest challenge, then?
Well, we have, we're trying to grow some more. We're trying to improve our quality and the variety of board that we make. We're trying to create a firmer financial footing so we might be able to be in a position to do something on a grander scale.
Is there a common thread among entrepreneurs?
I read and sense with entrepreneurs is they have supreme confidence. Some of them have too much confidence, obviously, because some of them fall flat in their rear end. But I think that's one of the characteristics. And unless you have confidence, you aren't going to carry yourself through the difficult spots. But the entrepreneur, I think he has that.
So the next time you see a pile of papers waiting to be recycled, consider you are looking at the riches of a forest waiting to be tapped. Ed Mullen looked, saw an opportunity, and made a fortune. I'm Beverly Shook. We'll be back next week with another edition of Pinnacle.
For a transcript of Pinnacle and many other CNN programs, send $5 to Journal Graphics, 1535 Grant Street, Denver, Colorado, 80203. Or call 303-831-9000.
This has been a presentation of CNN Business News.